It was just about applying myself. And if I was able to apply myself and put in the hard work, the next steps were inevitable.
So welcome again to season 4 of Relentless Life on Your Terms. As always, we have another special guest, but this one I've got to say is a little bit extra special for me, especially. It's my older brother, Zen Christofi. Zen, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
Obviously, chemistry is very, very important when it comes to business. A lot of people say work with family, some say don't. It's great when it works, it's hard when it doesn't, but we've worked side by side on, this is our 5th occasion now, from hospitality to sales to real estate. And as I said, it's an honor of mine because I've learned so much from you. But what's some of the stories? I mean, we share so many similarities. We're different in certain areas, but our work ethic's very similar. I think I'm definitely more of a smart ass than you. That was always been the case. You're more relaxed, more calm than I always was. But what are some of the things you'll share with people that they might not know about me or you growing up? Some funny stories.
Some of your annoying traits?
Well, I've got a lot of annoying traits, but go on. You might as well share them. I do like to annoy people.
Well,
I am immature.
Look, there's obviously plenty of stories. We'd have to roll the tape for
many, many hours.
For many, many hours to go through a number of them. But a few things that I remember. As a youngster, you didn't take to getting stirred up too well. You liked to stir up, but you didn't take to it too well. So I remember many car rides when we were in the back seat, and it was just the three of us. Our older brother was probably out with his friends at the time, but we'd be in the back seat, me, you, and our sister. Getting under your skin wasn't very difficult to do that, so that was that was quite easy as a youngster. But I think as you sort of grew, and when we moved overseas, I think you were about 10 years old at that stage, and your personality, you started to strengthen, your character started to come out. Your ability to then start giving it back came out, and that was something that you did a lot with our dad, who shares some similar traits with you as well. But again, he wasn't someone that took to it too well. I remember we owned a supermarket for a number of years, but back then, and you were a youngster. We both would work in the supermarket, so we'd be responsible for different things. I was taking care of filling the fridges, restocking and stuff like that as well. So once the tasks were passed on to me, I'd decide which tasks I wanted to do, and then I'd handball them over to you as well. But I remember Dad was open for maybe about 16, 18 hours a day. And we had a room upstairs where maybe he'd go for a rest or go to the bathroom or whatever. And at the time, if no one was there, he'd put a sign on the door saying "back in 5 minutes." So you used to be at the snooker hall, which was a couple doors down. And whenever you would come back into the shop, whether it was to come and get something to eat or whatever, if you'd seen that sign up on the door, "back in 5 minutes," you knew Dad was up in the bathroom. So you'd stand at the register and yell out, "Hello, hello." Dad would be calling out, "I'm coming." Quickly run down the stairs to find you at the bottom of the.
He wasn't happy to see me.
Find you at the bottom of the supermarket. You'd stand at one end of the aisle. He'd try and chase you around the aisle a number of times, and then you're off and running. So that was a couple of things that I remember growing up. I remember the first time when I got my motorbike. You were with one of your good friends, Chris, and I just got my car license at the time, and you wanted to take my bike because I had a car.
The red Honda Civic, I remember.
Yep. So then you decided, to look, you've got a car, let me take your motorbike. At the time, I don't think a 10-year-old should be driving a 125 around, but you were pretty persistent that you could do it. So I said to you, look, you can take the bike. As you clean the car for me, and then you can take the bike for as long as you like. So I went upstairs, went to get ready.
You said don't go on the main road.
Yeah, don't go on the main.
You said stay where the back is because Cyprus are little side streets.
So I thought, okay, if you drive around the side streets, there isn't going to be any police. No one's going to see a 10-year-old with his mate on the back driving around unlicensed. So I came back after about 3 or 4 minutes. Didn't see. My car key was still there, so I knew you weren't doing anything with the car. The bike key was gone. So I'm like, okay, well, where is this guy? Walking around the streets trying to find you. Walk onto the main road, and I see you and your friend on one wheel, as a 10-year-old on the bike. So I quickly called you back to come back and get off the bike before the cops get you and stuff like that. Chased you. Your friend jumped off the bike. You decided to jump off the bike as well.
I had to because you were going to get me.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to stay.
So you let me catch the bike.
Of course, so then I could run.
Chase you up the stairs. Lock yourself in the house, and wouldn't allow me into the house. I think I necked myself coming up the stairs.
I remember vividly because when you came, Chris Sava ran off, and I saw you coming for me, so I didn't put the stand on. So when you came to get me, I let the bike go. So you grabbed it, you put the stand on. I was running up the stairs. You went to kick me, but I was quicker, so you slipped on the stairs and necked yourself. Then I locked the door. I remember that. But another thing, when you were younger, you were actually, another thing people don't know about Zen, when he was 15, he was a semi-professional skater. He was going to skate for Pal Peralta and go to America. So before we did that, he went to Cyprus and didn't have that opportunity, but he was a great skater. And he actually taught me to skate at 9 years old. I was skating like 6 and 12 foot half pipes. And I remember he took me into the city. And I had to acid drop off something, which is basically a drop off. It was about as tall as my head. And he took me to the city, and I went up
City Square.
I don't remember where it was.
City Square.
And I went down, and I fell, and I hurt my knee. I was bleeding. You know, get back up. I cut my elbow. And I think you go, unless you land there, I'm not taking you home. And I think I landed the 5th or 6th drop. I was bleeding on my knee, on my hand, and I remember you and Pat always would teach me. I was a very, I don't know if stubborn was the word, but I'd never quit. I had a lot of guts about me. And even when I was fighting, Pat would never fight our fights. Even if it was against anyone, Pat, who's our older brother, who's a Commonwealth and 2-time Australian champion, if it was always us fighting, he would always leave us do it one-on-one and make it fair. He would never jump in if it was a fair fight. You did that with me as well. We always had to battle our own fights. You had to, with a skateboard, it was us doing our own thing. I remember that.
I think challenges and adversity is what makes you grow as a person. So if everything's handed to you, it's just so easy going forward. Without challenges and without adversity, you don't grow and develop as a person. And they're the sorts of things that
You remember and you grow.
Well, they're the sorts of things that were instilled in us. Things were never given to us as youngsters. We had to work hard to achieve it, and I think that's probably something that rubbed off on us.
I'll share one more funny story because I think this is a classic. I was always a shit stirrer as a young kid, and I was making fun of someone at school who happened to be 3 years older than me. One of the toughest kids in my school. His name was Thano. He was a boxer, represented Cyprus. I don't know what would compel me, so I was making fun of him at school. And while I was making fun of him, he was coming at me to get me, and I was continuing to make fun of him. I dropped, he came on top of me, grabbed my shoulders and threw me down. My head hit the concrete, almost knocked me out. I tried to swing at him, but I was so weak. He gave me a couple more. The teacher threw him off me, Thano. And I remember within a few days, I started kickboxing because my goal was within a year to go bash him. And I recall, thank God, 2 months later, he walked into the snooker course, Century Snooker School, and I started talking to him. We became friends. If we didn't, I'm sure he would have bashed me for many, many, many years to come. But I remember, from being a shit stirrer, teasing the wrong person,
Which you did a number of times.
I did, but I learned my lesson that day. But I remember the action I took was go training with Michael to learn kickboxing for that goal, and lucky became friends with me at snooker because I think I would have copped a couple more beltings.
Some people have to learn the hard way, Chris.
I definitely did that. Now, you've been an entrepreneur for over 25 years, been self-employed. Tell us the start of the journey and how that's evolved into where we are now.
Well, as you were saying, started my businesses over 25 years ago. Had a hospitality background, so worked with one of my cousins who actually owned a restaurant for a number of years, and working in that gave me a bit of a feel of, I suppose, what I would like to do in the future going forward. So there was always a goal to get into...
To be a business owner, you mean?
Be a business owner, open my own restaurants and cafes and things like that. So worked hard to sort of reach a management role, understand the back end of the business, understand what it took to run a successful restaurant. And I started working, obviously, extensive hours, getting some financial backing, and started my first restaurant at the age of 23.
Because obviously hospitality is important, and I remember the restaurant was actually Sal's Williams. It was a very popular restaurant, and I think in all hospitality you've got to be very, very good with people. I think one of your biggest strengths, obviously knowing you as well so well, is dealing with people. I think that really grounded all your other future endeavours that you were doing when you went into different roles. So after hospitality you opened quite a few restaurants. You went from Mediterranean choices to cafes and different things like that. That really grounded your ability. After the hospitality, what led you into the next role?
Well, after being in hospitality, I think I was in it for about 10 to 15 years at that stage. I decided that I wanted something new, a new challenge. So back then looked at Seek.com, had a look at the Herald Sun, seeing what jobs were available, found a job in sports sales and marketing. So sports was actually what drew my attention. I always loved sports from a young kid. So I thought, okay, let's head on in. I went in to the office, which was in West Melbourne, interviewed with the owner then. His name was Dave Owen. He told me a little bit about the role, what it involved. I said, okay, there's an orientation day. He invited me to the orientation day, went through the orientation day, thought this is something that I could excel in. And again, sports marketing was something that drew me to it. So I was involved with that business for around about 4 years. Started as a merchandiser. It's a global marketing firm. So started as a merchandiser, and there was opportunity for growth. So another reason to why I wanted to work with the organisation. So I started in the sales there as a merchandiser for around about 9 months until I was able to build my own sales team. And within that, I was able to open up my own organisation within that company. It took me around about 9 months to open up my own company, and that's when I started WIT in sales and marketing. So we worked with a number of different sporting organisations. So I worked with a lot of the AFL football clubs, with the league clubs, and also the National Soccer League as well. And during that time, I think I managed up to 50 contractors. We did a lot of game day events, a lot of merchandising. So it was a great experience dealing with a lot of different people, clients, and also dealing with a number of different people in the sales capacity as well. And training was something that was front of mind for that organisation. So they had over 800 offices across the world.
It was like 16. How many reps? 16,000. What was it worldwide? It was something obscene.
There was
wasn't it?
83 countries. There was over 800 offices in 83 countries around the world.
Which was, I think at the time, was one of the biggest around the world. I remember I worked with you briefly, and it was a great schooling into understanding sales. You're going to get a lot of no's before you get yeses. It was a lot of hard work, and the training was very, very good in terms of being resilient, getting all those no's and continuing. So within 9 months, you got promoted to an owner, sorry.
Yep.
And I also recall within a short period of time, with month 9 to year 4, you also opened 3 offices in addition to that, didn't you?
That's correct.
Was it 3 or 4? I know.
I actually opened 4 offices.
Sorry,
I opened 2 in Melbourne. I opened 1 in regional Victoria, and I also assisted opening 1 in New South Wales as well. So the goal was to build sales teams, coach and develop new consultants that were coming through, for them to be able to generate enough income to support a new sales office. So that's what we did. The training was basic training, but it was continual training, and it was something that I believe was really important. The basic fundamentals of sales. So they taught you the basic principles of sales. So they called it the 5 steps back then, and the 8 steps to successful business habits. So a lot of people that progressed in those roles, those fundamentals, they grasped them quickly. And I think coming from a hospitality background, dealing with a number of different people, for me, it was just about applying myself. And if I was able to apply myself and put in the hard work, the next steps were inevitable.
It was actually amazing because I remember you even had these little pitch cards, so they wanted us to really learn these things inside out.
Yep.
What were some of the key takeaways that you feel that taught you to excel in that role, but also taught others in the sales role?
I think it was perseverance and understanding sales is about numbers. So working through a number of different clients to find your opportunities, and what that did teach me was just perseverance. So understanding that not everyone's going to obtain the products that you actually had for sale, but understanding that there's people from all different walks of life, and how do you connect with those different people as well?
So it was mainly like a mindset and attitude.
Definitely.
And I think that hospitality background, to be able to be personable and to speak to so many people, would have really springboarded your results in sales, because I think people that are good in hospitality, in most cases, and I know you're definitely one of them, have exceptional people skills, which is probably one of your best attributes in my opinion.
I think one thing that hospitality does is it really allows you to grow as a person. You're dealing with different people from all walks of life, and you need to understand how to deal with those sorts of people, how to connect with different people, how to give a little bit of yourself to get
Objection
something
handling
from someone else, a number of different things, and problem solving. So sales is about problem solving, client services, customer service is about problem solving. So I think what hospitality had taught me and what sales and marketing had taught me was it's a different approach for different people. So the importance of, I suppose, understanding what clients were looking for, and being empathetic really helped with me.
And obviously listening skills is paramount, whether you're in sales or hospitality.
Yeah.
So I know you worked extremely hard to build the 4 offices and what you did in the career. And in 2005, again, I know you thought, I want a new challenge, and you got into real estate, which you're still in now, which was almost 20 years ago now. Tell us about that transition.
Well, that transition was probably due to yourself, actually. I went to your son's birthday party, met with the director of your company, and he was talking to us about wanting to increase his sales and marketing.
I do remember that now.
So my wife at the time was explaining, obviously, my experiences, coaching and developing different people. We had a large sales force back then. So she said, why don't you go and have a chat to Zen? Maybe he can help you out with that. So we had a conversation that day.
That was at Hillside, I remember, yeah.
That's correct. I went into his office the following week, explained to him about a little bit about myself, my experiences, what I was doing currently within the sales and marketing organisation, and he said, this is something that we want to venture into. So I said, fantastic, let's give it a go. I'm happy to start working for the organisation. I had consultants that we could just bring across, so we could start with getting a good understanding of, I suppose, clients that they were looking for. And I said a condition for me working within the organisation would be to put me in the sales arm, so I can get a good understanding of exactly what sort of clients we were looking for. So I did that for around about a year.
I remember, yeah.
Working as a sales consultant, seeing different people around Victoria, talking to everyday mums and dads about investments, about finance and property. Although I didn't have extensive experience in finance at the time, I did have some understanding about property because I'd invested previously myself.
And you owned quite a few properties as well. You always loved property. We all did.
I think that was something that we saw
from our father,
and it was probably something that he did later in life. And I suppose looking back and seeing the limited education, limited opportunities that he had, it really sort of gave us, I suppose it empowered us to say, well, if Dad's able to do something like that, with the education that we've been given and the knowledge that we can actually get,
he built a property portfolio, yeah.
Sky should be the limit for us.
And he gave us all a deposit to get into my first property as a wedding present. I've said that story on many occasions. But I recall I was a national manager at that firm, and I remember I wanted to move on when I started the franchise, and I remember my boss at the time said to me, I want you to find me someone that's like you or as good as you. I said, there's going to be a challenge there. And I thought of you straight away. And then at that party, this kind of happened pretty quick. And then you came along, he did speak to you, now I recall that. And you worked for a year when I segued across, and you actually ran that whole division as the national manager. And I think having all your sales experience, because I remember even when you were working with me, we've worked together on 5 occasions. I worked with Zen at hospitality. We worked together in real estate. I worked with Zen selling tickets. I remember one of the things that I learned most about you was your people skills, and I thought that's something that I really want to take to that level. Sales, I think we've always had a thing for. We've always spoken sales, so we've always bounced well off each other there. But real estate, you gravitated towards because you loved. But finance, you got to grasp with that very quick, because within a year you segued across from working within that sales team to being the national manager there, which I think you did for quite a few years before you started your own company.
Yep. Well, I, as you were saying, worked in the sales arm for the first year. That's when you were transitioning and opening up your own company. They were looking for a manager. They were looking to open up a number of different locations across the country. It had been something that I've been
Sydney,
familiar
Gold
with.
Coast, Brisbane. I think we opened 3-4 offices together.
Yep, we opened up in Ashgrove in Brisbane. We opened up in
Coast,
Reventon in the Gold Coast.
Yep.
And then we went to New South Wales and opened one up in Sydney as well.
What a good memory, yeah.
So it was a great start because they were startups. We were coaching and developing real estate agents, finance brokers, planners, from start to finish. So it was for us. It was a great experience, and I suppose learning the ropes, opening new offices from scratch
Was the best.
was something that was it was motivating. I remember when I first headed up to Queensland in Ashgrove, I was up at 4 or 5 in the morning, walking the streets, listening to Anthony Robbins cassettes, getting motivated, getting ready to go, getting into the gym, do my training session, then heading out to the office, starting with the training and developing of the staff, heading out in the evenings, doing piggybacks, training all the different consultants, and really getting things going for the organisation.
It was competition without opposition. I remember me, you, and the director at the time would go out interstate, would see clients together and would compete at our results. Do you remember all that?
Yeah.
We always had a great time. We would always see who could beat each other, who could close the most, and all three of us would always do well, and I would always have an absolute blast. It's good being surrounded with good people, because competition without opposition creates that rivalry, creates that competitiveness, and I think definitely myself and yourself and our boss at the time taught me a lot in sales anyway.
I think there was a lot of things to learn. Things that I suppose we took into running our own business, pros and cons to different operators. And what I tried to focus on was looking at the things that they did really, really well, and really focus on strengthening those things. But I also tried to focus on some of the things that the organisation didn't do so well. So some of the promises that they would actually give out to clients that they weren't fulfilling on the back end. And that was something that I said to myself, okay, well, given another opportunity, this is something that I really want to strengthen.
So that, and I guess I keep saying it back, it anchors back to that customer service background. It anchors back to that problem solving, and which is kind of what sales is. Now, from that transition, I know me and you went on to run our own businesses for many years. You ran a company that was involved with just under $1 billion worth of real estate sales. I think you did well over 1,000 sales across the board.
Yep.
You actually implemented all that. Both you and and our other brother as well ran a company for many, many years. Was it how many years?
Just short of 18 years.
Just short of 18 years. So almost 20 years you went that. How you went from that to start your own business. What were some of the lessons that you learned there?
I think being self-employed for a number of years.
Almost 25 years now.
I was conditioned to hard work. I was conditioned to different challenges that we'd face. So it wasn't something that was new to me. So when we first started the organisation, my brother actually said to me, "Look, we've been doing this for many years for other people. Why don't we just do it for ourselves?" And I said, "Okay, to start an organisation like this, you need good financial backing, and you need good people within that organisation." So through the contacts that I'd made over the course of my time in real estate and investments, I probably picked 3 or 4 people that I thought could really help us start the organisation and build from there.
Yep.
And that's how we started. I worked in every department. So worked in property, oversaw. So I got my real estate license. Although I wasn't a finance broker, I oversaw the finance process. Sat with clients, got a good understanding of, I suppose, what they were looking for,
Leads marketing.
all of those sorts of things, and I'd had experience in that previously. So when I started the company, I was ahead of most people in the sense of I had the contacts to get things going, and I knew I had the work ethic to really sort of take.
What were some of the biggest challenges you ever faced that you overcame, or some of the biggest hurdles that you thought, wow, this is tough?
Well, when we started the company, first, I suppose really just getting those processes in place, making sure that the deals that we were doing were good deals. It was good business. It was good practice. Making sure that we weren't putting people in a situation that they shouldn't be in.
So good deals, you mean deals where people are making money so they can come back and keep buying? Because obviously, I know your business was built a lot on referrals. You had a lot of repeat business.
Yeah.
And that's what you're referring to, yeah?
Over 25% of our clients were multiple purchasers. And I think that was just due to the systems that we had in place. Making the clients understand that it was a long-term play, reviewing them on an annual basis,
Yep.
Making sure we were doing our utmost to do the right thing by our clients. So the right selection in relation to properties, making sure that the financial institutions were kept honest. So we were on the phone to the financial institutions every 12 months, checking that they were on the right sort of products. With finance, there's a lot of product changes, so making sure that
Compliance, regulation, all that stuff.
all of those sorts of things, but also just making sure that if there are product changes, that clients were aware of those product changes, and if there are opportunities for them to start to save more money, to put them in a position to be looking at something else to help them to continue on their building wealth, that was something that we really focused on. So the review process for us was really strong.